Today's podcast is brought to you by Kentucky Farm Bureau Insurance. You never know what tomorrow may bring. That's why it's important to get the right insurance coverage today. At Kentucky Farm Bureau, we deliver the protection and peace of mind your family deserves. In fact, we've been providing folks in the bluegrass with dependable service since 1943. To request a free quote, find your local KFB insurance agent at mykfbagent.com. Kentucky Farm Bureau, big on commitment. Hey, Matt, how's it going?
It's going good. We have a cool guest today. We are finding ways to celebrate America's 250th. 250th? I didn't say that right.
250th.
250th. So we wanted to have someone come and talk about some Kentucky history. But I was going to wonder, are you a history buff? Are you into...
So, humble brag, the only two tests that I passed when I took AP tests, and I took a few of those, that I got 3s on, or 4s, were AP US History and Political Science.
Yeah,
so,
there you go.
I mean, here we are.
So you're a history buff. That's pretty much what
I like history. I'm not great at remembering all of it. Like, I get, there's 2 world wars.
Yeah.
And, we're mad at the same people, some of it. But then there's sometimes that I get a little tongue-tied. We'll be, watching the World Cup, and I'm like, today? We don't like them.
Who needs a historian?
And they're like, why don't we like them? I'm like, remember that war? And they're like, no, Renee, which war?
We had 2 wars.
Which one are you referencing today? So, I would say I used to really nerd out, and then as I've gotten, I think my brain's full.
Yeah.
I have to, because I'm not constantly reminding myself, which is why, thank goodness, we brought in a historian.
Right. We brought in a great historian. Yeah, I like history, but I like it in weird ways, in the sense of
this will be fun.
Yeah, this is kind of stuff. It's like we kind of romanticize a little bit, and I think she actually goes there a little bit about the toughness of how the world really was then, and weird things like hygiene and what they wore and how they did things that we have, that all these things we have today that just weren't a thing. She talks about if they just had a phone, how things would have been very different.
That could be an entire, that could be its own podcast. History if there was a phone.
Yeah.
Do you know how quick we would have known the British were coming?
Yeah, I mean,
do you know how quick we would have known a lot of things happened?
We created a thing called a marathon because a man ran 26 miles. He could have just
sent a text message.
Send a text, and everything. He wouldn't have had to run a marathon. So,
do you think at one point, actually, good thing we didn't have phones, because somebody would have taken a picture of the British in their red coats walking out of the woods, looking like an obvious alert button, we're here, and they'd be like, you know what we should quit doing? Wearing red in the winter and walking in straight lines. Somebody would have sent the photo back to Britain. They'd have been like, ooh, let's quit doing that. Then our guerrilla warfare wouldn't have worked, and then we wouldn't have be America.
Look at you. You're a history buff.
Did you hear all that history?
You're a history buff.
I still got it.
But yeah, so we have a great guest. This is
who's probably listening to this going, wow,
none of that's true.
They need a new lesson.
Everything she just said is not true. No, she's great. She is we're connected through Farm Bureau. This is a Farm Bureau member who is a historian in our most historic town, I would say, right?
The oldest town in Kentucky.
Yes. So we are going to learn a lot about Harrodsburg today, and we have a great guest here. Miss Preston is just awesome. She is fits right in with us. She can talk. She can tell you all about it. She knows everybody in the town and knows so much history. And
and spoiler, you're probably related to them all. She did tell us that.
Apparently all related.
We're all related.
Yeah, but she's great, and I think folks are really going to enjoy her. And there's so much history in that town. If you're just bored on a weekend, just go to Harrodsburg, and you're going to see all kinds of really neat stuff. So and of course she loves it, and so we thought it would be a perfect person to talk about the oldest town in our great Commonwealth as we celebrate America too.
There you go. How much better could you say it?
Right.
All right. I'm Renee Carrico.
I'm Matt Hilton.
Let's get rural. Yeah, so it has been quite the Monday.
Quite the Monday.
The Mondayest of Mondays. But most of our listeners will probably hear this on some Tuesday.
On a Tuesday, but we have a great guest today. This young lady was brought to us by Beth Kelly, Mercer County Farm Bureau.
The best.
We wanted to talk to someone that knows a whole lot about one of the oldest towns in America, but also definitely in Kentucky. So introduce yourself to the audience. Who are you?
My name is Amalie Preston. I am a Farm Bureau member, by the way. That's how Beth snagged me.
There you go.
And at any rate, I have lived in Kentucky, actually in the same house all of my life. My niece said, look in Webster's dictionary under boring, and it has my name.
Oh, don't listen to that, listeners. She's very interesting.
I have talked to you a little bit before this podcast. Boring is not the thing at all. So tell us, why were you picked? What are we going to be talking about today?
Well, of course, as I've said, ours is a Farm Bureau family. We have our farm insured through it. We have our vehicles, and plus that, they're friends. This is a small town. Mm-hmm. And so when I step in to the office to drop off a payment or whatever else, we just shoot the breeze. Mm-hmm. And so they kind of came to realize that I had an interest in history. I try not to bore them. My family tells me, watch their eyes when they start to glaze over. At any rate.
Wait, are you related to my mom that said that for you? No.
Probably so. Oh, that's the other thing. I mean, to genealogy, everybody in central Kentucky, if you go back far enough, is related.
That's the rumor.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, well, we won't go there either. At any rate, I don't know how much you want to know, but yeah. I worked my working life, if you will, outside the farm for the Kentucky public health system.
Okay.
And that was really amazing. You pick up little factoids like we were treating tuberculosis and we've about wiped it out. But I understand from my farm side that the disease, leprosy, can be carried by armadillos. And so the same medicine that cured our tuberculosis can cure leprosy, and armadillos are on their way into Kentucky. Are you aware of that?
Oh, yeah, they're on the side of the road everywhere. You don't see them yet?
Yeah. Okay, but as you see, I do digress quite a bit. So back to Amalie Preston. That's what I did for my working life. I have been retired for about 20 years now as far as 9 to 5. But, of course, you know this, Renee. Once you're a farmer, there's no such thing as retired.
Never heard of it.
You die in the harness, so to speak. So at any rate, I am chief bookkeeper for our family farm. And living in that part of Kentucky, you're just steeped in the history of the place. And so I always knew, for instance, that our farm backed up to Harrod's Landing Run. And that's a creek that gives you an easy way out of the ravine of the Kentucky River into the inner heartland of what's now Mercer County, and Mr. James Harrod and party did that in 1774.
Wow.
What next?
Yeah. Just talk. I want to talk about Harrodsburg a little bit. You know a lot about the history of it, how it got going.
Sure.
And I think that starts with James Harrod,
sure.
For sure. So talk about that history. How far back are we talking? And this is a little, I mean, people probably starting to understand if they listen to our podcast for a while that we're trying to tap into this America 250
Absolutely.
thing and our history. And this is one of the most historical towns in the whole state. So talk a little bit, how did it get founded? Who was James Harrod?
Absolutely. Well, again, he was a contemporary of Daniel Boone. They would have known each other because they were backwoodsmen. They were long hunters, as they call them. And so he was out and about across the Appalachians and into Kentucky long before 1774. And while it's not documented, we know that he had traversed this place and realized what a good place it was. Mm-hmm. And so by 1774, June of 1774, he had his plans. And so dug out canoes down the Ohio, up the Kentucky, pull in at Carrollton, by the way, to get up the Kentucky River, and then via this little creek into the area that would be Harrodsburg. And he just didn't go in and wander around. That man came with a plan. Mm-hmm. He had surveyors with him. I don't know if you want that a particular aside. One of them was a gentleman named Isaac Height, and that Height name is quite prolific in early Kentucky history but I heard it pop up on TV in Finding Your Roots, and they were doing Tim McGraw, the singer.
Yeah.
And he's a Haidt descendant. I think this man was like his 7th grade uncle. So at any rate, it's fascinating. But I digress. And so at any rate, so they're up there right in the area of town that we now call Factory Street. But a good broad plain has a creek running through it, and the creek comes out of the middle of the earth. It's from an artesian spring called Big Spring. And of course, they would have camped there. Easy, good water. And did they come? Yes, they came prepared to survey. What they did was this whole party said, "Now we're along for this ride, James, and we want some land out of this." And that's that was going to be their payment. So all the guys got to go and survey their land, including James Harrod, who got like 1,400 acres in what's now Boyle County. We won't go there. and a beautiful, wonderful farm. So they got their own land surveyed first, and then they surveyed and platted off this town that he very modestly named Harrod's Town, and so got that all going. Put it to paper, surveyed off little half-acre lots, in-lots they were called. So that would be for houses, businesses, et cetera, in this big rectangle. And then that was surrounded by outlots that were like 10 acres. And again, it's kind of logical because you had some bigger plots that could grow vegetables and stuff and feed the inner city. Now, it never quite grew up that way because reality happens. And so here they have it all done, down pat. They've got the city platted off. And all of a sudden, the Revolutionary War is still kicking up back east. And Lord Dunmore's War was going on, and the word came to them, "You're in danger out there. You need to get back here and help us fight this thing." So he and his men went back east, just were a little shy of getting there for the Battle of Point Pleasant. So they were involved in Revolutionary War battles, if you will. So they hung out just for a while, and there are those that use that to say, should we call it a permanent settlement? The reason I think it qualifies for permanent settlement is, yes, they built cabins to mark the place, and they intended to stay, and they got back as quickly as they could. And when they got back in March, I think it was, of 75, they realized, hey, we're not just going to be able to have this little street here with a few little cabins along it. We're going to put a stockade up around it. So they started building the stockade. And so that went up, and that made it a permanent fixture. And again, because of the tie to agriculture, this is an agriculture area. All of these guys knew this isn't going to be that little postage stamp farm that we had back east of the Alleghenies that barely fed our families. We can get a big enough thing here. We can make a bite in this world. And so they were ready to be able to grow more than they needed to be able to sell it, and then to head on in growth, business growth from there. And it did eventually work that way. We'll put it that way. There were hitches and starts as it went along. And of course, again, I'm going to bore y'all bleary-eyed, but I do want you to think about the land and the springs that were there as to why they stopped there. Are you familiar with artesian springs, that just come out of nowhere? And Kentucky has those. But it's so bizarre to be walking along this nice flat, level land, and all of a sudden it looks like a little pond over there. But boy, if it's really been raining, there is a major bubble up in the middle of it. And so that underground stream has hit a rock wall it can't get through, so it bursts through the top. And that little stream makes what we call Town Branch or Town Creek in Harrodsburg. And this is my noble thing, but this is what connects us to the whole world, because that little spring makes the creek that runs into Salt River, that runs into the Ohio River, that runs into the Mississippi River, that runs into the Gulf of Mexico. So whatever we do on that little place in Harrodsburg, ultimately, as the water branches out all over the world, affects the whole world. And so our lives are that way. We may be in just one little place, but we can affect the whole world. And this is the violin playing.
Well, I'm going to jump back because I
Please
think
do.
this is so interesting to me. So we talk about farmland preservation, and And actually, we've talked to people, whether it's Mercer County, Christian County, I'm naming all the places that I'm thinking of right off the top of my head from the last few days. But, how do we retain land? And is the smartest thing to do a half-acre lot or a 10-acre lot? Is the smartest thing to, make it that tax exemption land amount, which is 10 acres? I think a lot of us, though, think about it like this is a now thing, quarter-acre lots, half-acre lots. It is so interesting to me to hear people talk like this at the early settler times, doing there were land surveyors, obviously, but the thought of them surveying but truly parceling out a town in the manner with which towns are done today just seems very odd to me. You think of it, I guess we all have like the Oregon Trail in our head of like, well, they stop here because there was stuff here and they build their cabin and they hope they can find somebody in the next 3 miles on their wagon going another way. And that's not, they were truly like building the town. That's just really neat to hear.
And so what you get to watch as the town grows is how each one of those layers gets in there. For instance, okay, we're managing to hang in there. We got a good year this year. The Native Americans didn't burn our crops, et cetera. We've got an excess of corn. How could we ship that? And believe it or not, early on, they were shipping it via boat down the Kentucky River and out. And we know that they went even all the way to New Orleans with some things. That could be kegs of whiskey made out of corn. So that was a natural byproduct.
Value add.
Value-added products.
But of course, then there was flax, there was tobacco. And when you go through the old books that have to do with the town, the court cases, even the deeds, it was a currency. And so many pounds of tobacco paid your witness at your trial or this, that, and the other.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So tobacco was a currency. And at any rate, so Harrodsburg is growing in that respect and has a town down on the Kentucky River that was named Warwick that got incorporated while we were still Virginia, long before we were Kentucky.
We don't have to talk about that time. It's tough. It's tough still being Virginia.
and so I'll tell you something else funny because I, of course, I've got this strange brain, but I love to look at the old books up there, and they were spelling phonetically, and so you actually are listening to them talk. And so nowadays it's W-A-R-W-I-C-K, Warwick, right? But they're spelling it W-A-R-R-I-C-K. They were saying Warwick.
Warwick, yeah.
And I think you look in England nowadays for that word, you find that that's how they still pronounce it over there. Wow. So just little clues like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk about, you said they came here, they saw this land, and said this will work, right? What do you mean by this will work? What was it about, you think, back then that they saw? I don't think our farmers today understand how good land this is in this state. But what do you think they saw when they got here?
Some do and some don't. These guys knew what to look for. Uh-huh. It's my understanding that cane brakes, the wild cane that grew here, grew in good land, and so you could look and see where that was growing and know that it was good land. And in fact, I'm told that as they surveyed the land, people then, in hindsight, were grading, they knew enough that they would have to put what type of land they considered it, whether it was first rate, second rate, third rate, and so on. And that was the value of the land. Mm-hmm. But also, some people that would go back and look at the culls, like from a certain tree to a certain tree. And in the poorer land, invariably the tree was a cedar tree because cedar trees grew on poor land and some of the better trees. Oh, and you're getting me on another thing, but trees. There was a tree, I want to find it, but I know it no longer exists. It was the 6 Mile tree, and all kinds of land was surveyed with that as a survey point. Somewhere north of Harrodsburg toward the settlement of McAfee now, in a perimeter there was a tree so magnificent that you could see it above the canopy of the forest and use it for a deed call for the folks that were surveying out there.
Wow.
Yeah. But at any rate, so Harrodsburg is a town, and then it's having to be a fortified town. So they're seeing to that. And so at the same time that other places such as Boonesboro and so on were having a struggle with being under siege, well, Harrodsburg was. And so there was a particular period of time there, I think it was 76, 77, we're just becoming a fledgling nation. And here in central Kentucky, we're seeing, are we going to really exist? And so all of them had, all of the fortifications, others, had been run out of Kentucky, and only 3 were standing, and that was Boonesboro, Harrodsburg, and Fort Logan or Stanford. And it's my understanding that Stanford is really short for Standing Fort. Isn't that cool?
Oh,
Isn't that
cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now you got me next. Where do we want to go with Harrodsburg?
Yeah, I was just talking about its history is agriculture in a lot of ways, but also it is James Harrod. What you talked a little bit before we even started recording that this Daniel Boone guy gets a lot of credit. He's awesome. He's awesome. Don't get me wrong.
It deserves it.
Right, and deserves it.
But so does James.
Yes. Talk a little about that. I think people maybe don't understand his importance.
Right.
Obviously, to that town, it makes a lot of sense, but to Kentucky and kind of the state in the long time.
Don't you ever wonder, for those that we know were killed back in that early time, if that type of administrator and commander had been able to live, what difference could he have made in Kentucky? And so I often think that about him. But I'll just briefly give the circumstances leading up to him leaving us in Kentucky. And part of that is the fact that he was a single man when he came here. You might like his description. I think I put that down. Physically, Renee Weedle liked him. He was tall, dark, and handsome, over 6 feet tall, black hair, black eyes. They said had a wonderful, mild personality, but don't corner him. And that he, one of the ladies describes him as having a very nice, trim waist. And so at any rate, so they were looking at him. But of course, when he's coming in here, he's in his hunting shirt. Now, I think one myth I want to dispel is that we're picturing all of these guys with a dead raccoon on their head and a hunting shirt, probably leather leggings and all that. I'm not saying they did not. But there was a store down at Louisville at Beargrass Creek called Broadheads that ledgers still exist, and the Harrods shopped there. And so I will tell you what they bought in just a minute. But right now, my theory on what he wore for every day, jean material was already in. And it was soft, and it was cotton, and it was blue denim. And let's face it, an awfully lot of people wore that, and it was economical. I came upon that because those ancient books down at the courthouse, those that are of 100% rag paper that doesn't crumble, are pale blue. And so they had made paper out of the byproducts of making jeans.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, it is. So at any rate, so you can just see this good-looking guy walking through with probably a beaded hunting shirt and jeans on. And so he was a prime catch, and lo and behold, the widow McDonald came through. And she had been newly widowed, had a little son, Jamie, and she was quite the looker. Next thing you know, James Harrod is courting her, and in 1778, I think it is, they married. And to me, again, this is James Harrod's personality. He loved that little boy. He even set up a school. By then, by the way, he had built a magnificent, huge 2-story log house for her out on their preemption, and had a school for the little boy, and all the area kids could come to it, and that kind of thing. I guess I get into the triggering thing that happened. By then, 7 years later, he and his wife had a little girl, Margaret. But I'm assuming Jamie would have probably been, say, 12, 13, 14, something like that. And James Harrod gave him the responsibility of keeping the sugar camp, which wasn't right at the house, but somewhere in the woods beside it, refining syrup down. And all of my life, and it's in all the history books, that Shawnee came through and for some awful unknown reason burned that little boy at the stake and killed him. And it sounds horrible, and it was horrible, because I can't think of a real logical reason for a lone child to be burned at the stake, and it wasn't. We came upon, and I've made copies of it, an affidavit by a man and on a totally separate point who was verifying deed calls, and he told what year he came in. He said, well, it was the year after little Jamie McDonald caught his clothes on fire and burned to death. And so I think it was a total accident, but it's beside the point. James Harrod was distraught. And they said he started back doing the long hunter trips again, started doing those more and more. And in the year 1792, when we became a state, he had gone on one that he didn't come back from. And so that ended the era of James Harrod. But I think it's a testimony to him. He had established a town that kept right on, the clockwork running without him, going on to the next thing, entering modern society, if you will. And so we missed, I think, having a very good leader there. But I think it's a sign of a good leader that he started something that kept going. Yeah.
So some of that kind of leads to my question. As you read history books, it's easy to hear all the hardships of the frontier, moving westward, all of the verbiage you use. So when you hear the story of this one, you hear, they really built the fort part really quickly. And so talk to me, though, about the hardships that are still there. So, yes, maybe you have fortified the barriers, but life in that time, I mean, that kid's 12 and something so simple of an accident. I mean, there were just a lot of things. Yes, we have denim, but there's a lot of other mechanized pieces we do or don't have, and safety we don't have. So talk through some of the hardships of maybe really, and I think that kind of bridges into what he was, is getting this town started in such a tough time with not a lot of amenities to help.
Right. Well, long before the tragedies, as I said, he was a good administrator there. So he kept organized there. Plus, you've also got to realize everybody almost that had a piece of land had built themselves either a fortified cabin or something just in case out on their land. Fort Harrod would be in full use if there was a major campaign by the Native Americans against them. Okay. And everybody would come into it then. Well, you got to realize how full that made it. And so yes, if it was a bad time, they would even want to bring their animals in there, and they grazed it. They say it was just deplorable living conditions. But Harrod and the men of the fort organized a schedule, if you will. I'm telling you, they had to be so brave to go out, slip out of the fort at night if it's under siege, and go however far it took to come upon a turkey, a deer, or whatever, and to keep the fort supplied with meat. So that's one of the aspects that you don't think about it, especially if you had put out your crops, and often the crops were burned or destroyed. And so then you might also have to mount an expedition to go and see if you could go down to Louisville and get some extra corn to grind up for meal or wheat for flour. And I've read of times when that just was simply not possible, and they made do with turkey dark meat for the regular meal and sliced up the white and played like it was bread.
Oh, wow.
But I'll tell you this, think about it. That's the keto diet, isn't it?
They were ahead of their time.
You said he had a trim waist. There you go. Well, I think what's cool about it, we did so I used to do a TV show called Bluegrass and Backroads all these years ago, and we did a story on the fort. And I think what's neat about the town is how much stuff's still there, and how important and how proud the town is of those things.
Absolutely.
Talk about some of that stuff that, you're talking about his lasting legacy. It's literally, you can go see it and visually see these things still. What are some of the things that are in the town that people can still see today? And why do you think, I think a lot of little towns do that. Smaller towns do this.
Right.
It's not like it's unique, but you guys have really done it all the way. In a big way, and I think it's really cool how how your town has really embraced its history and really wants to preserve it. Talk about some of the neat things there, and why do you think that's the case? Why do you think your all's town, you are very into it, but I think you're just one of many folks that are really into the history of your all's town.
I don't have a pat answer for that as such, just that it's the way it always was. But some people figured out early on that this was important. So we had organizations, ultimately such as the DAR, et cetera, that decided to get in there. And so all of these things came to bear. And I think actually focusing and building the replica of Old Fort Harrod there just focused everybody's attention on that. And so then the stories would trickle in, not just Harrod's, but others. And we could go on for days with the other ones. And so at any rate, it kind of got to be a focus. And yes, so much is still there. For instance, even though the fort isn't exactly on its site, because how can I say this? These people were all practical as well. And so where the old fort actually sat had a wonderful outcropping of limestone, and it got quarried.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to tell you this. This is a total aside, but there was a lawsuit or things going to have to be done about Main Street, Harrodsburg, where it was situated. Harrodsburg's Main Street is very steep. It also had rocky ledge outcroppings, but the town tavern keepers were complaining because people that owned the businesses along that street, if they needed gravel for something, they were quarrying the street and Main Street, the ledge out in front of their place. Well, maybe that wouldn't have been so bad, but the people that were using the taverns were walking out in the dark, maybe a little inebriated. And so truly there was a lawsuit that had to do with somebody falling in a newly quarried hole on Main Street. So there's, to me, the reality is so much funnier and more captivating sometimes than what we write up in our plastic histories, shall we say. But at any rate, no, that the town soon realized, especially with the building of the fort, hey, this is also another way of making a living. But thank goodness that lots was still there and had not been torn down. And that is a regular ongoing endeavor, and that is to keep people educated. We have some organizations there that have researched properties, and if they change hands, try to make sure that the new owner knows what you have here was built in such and such. And so we've got, Woodsland built circa, let me think now, it's more like 1810. It's one of the young ones.
So young.
Out in the counties where the McAfee party surveyed, you've got their big old stone houses, and by then they had first put up log cabins, but those are like 1795, and so you've got all kinds of structures. And again, you just look at that, and the story is right there. And so I think if you're graced to be born in and live in Mercer County, you're going to absorb it one way or the other because it's out there for you.
Whether you like it or not. I love it. Okay, so we've given a lot of pros to this nice, tall, strapping man. Not saying he doesn't deserve it, but you sent us a plethora of information, which, by the way, maybe A+ guest on the list. I mean, come on. I have never had somebody so well prep us. Usually it's a very fast Google search right before we start, and I'm like, oh, I got to get caught up. But let's talk about some of the women. So I think a lot of times when we're talking frontier Revolutionary War, a lot of it is men, and we can go through many reasons on that. But a lot of it is the settlers and is, a surveyor and a builder. I mean, it's a lot of very masculine man work.
Right.
Once this place is built, though, we need a woman's touch.
Absolutely.
So talk to me about some of maybe the women in the historical pieces that come with the beginnings of Harrodsburg.
Well, and I'll be lucky to get all of her names in there, but I sent you the information.
I mean, my Lord, how many can one person have?
I know.
It's incredible.
And you would think that no man would be intrepid enough to marry her after the fifth husband is dead, But let's see, Anne Kennedy Wilson, Lindsay Pogue McGinty.
Ooh, I wish we still had our little ding, ding, ding from our trivia game. That was impressive.
She was fantastic. She had lived like the men on the frontier all of her life, and so she was already hardened to it. And so, believe it or not, came in with the intent of settling at Boonesboro. But that's the other thing that we'll address eventually here. Harrod actually had gotten a better reputation for providing a safer haven for the travelers that came in. So she and her husband came on past and came on up here, and they were the original power couple because she brought her weaving loom and her spinning wheel over the mountains with her. And she's documented as saying when she got there, the people were threadbare. And you can just picture our little clothing if you're out through the briars and the brambles and in all of the weather that went on. And so not again, at that point in time, they later on were able to grow a little cotton there. And then when they could finally have their animals there and shear them and have wool, but when she first got there was no animal, there was no vegetable. And so she knew and found that the bison were around all over the place. They've got wool, don't they? They would be out in a bramble patch somewhere, scratching and itching, and they would lose their wool there. And then she also knew of a nettle that had good fibrous insides. So she combined those two and made a perfectly strong cloth and started making clothing for the people of the fort. And, of course, then she provided a very necessary. She ran one of the first bars / hotels or inns there, and did all. I mean, and this was not like, oh, my husband will back me up on this. She did it, and so. Seriously, and we're making light of it, but it was in many respects a really tragic life. But she had some children with them. And again, you can tell I'm watching TV. Antiques Roadshow was down at Louisville several years ago, and she has descendants down there. We've not found them, but they brought in her sugar chest to be evaluated at the Antiques Roadshow.
Oh, wow.
And, sugar was so valuable that they were lockable. They had a piece of furniture that you stored your sugar in and made sure nobody pilfered it. So at any rate, Anne McGinney raised her children, lived to a ripe old age, certainly for the frontier, was even after, things were civilized, the fortifications are being torn down, houses and things are being built on the real lots. The town is finally looking like a town, not Anne. She had a block house. She liked it. She lived into it till she was gone. So the Palisades went down around her, but that 2-story blockhouse was Anne McGinney's till the end.
Oh, wow.
Very neat. Very neat. That's too cool. So, you look at the town was built in lots of ways, but agriculture is a big part of it.
Absolutely.
It's still a huge part of what Mercer County is about, what Harrodsburg is about. Talk about that and how important agriculture has been to the history of your town.
As we said, it certainly was back then, and they made sure that they were going to be able to sell their excess produce, and that is why they liked this land, because again, as I said, it wasn't going to just be subsistence, and so that was one of the first measures of it. And then Harrodsburg itself grew up to be a center of a place that you could take your tobacco. Of course, I remember as a little girl. Going to town and selling the tobacco, and that's when you got to do your Christmas shopping. And so at any rate, it just was a hub of not only a place to sell, but a place that you're going to buy the items that you need in order to produce, from the seed to the fertilizers and that kind of thing. I remember my great-grandfather Purvis down in McAfee was known as a seed keeper. And so I never knew him, but the family would talk about that before he would cut his tobacco, he would go out and put little bags over each of the pink blooms' heads, and those tiny, tiny little seeds would fall into that, and then people would go to him to buy seed for the tobacco. So we were, and that's not been so horribly long ago. We were still pretty self-sufficient as far as taking care of ourselves. With that kind of thing. What was the question, Matt?
Just how it started and it's still today. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
Such an agriculture county, lots going on there. Farm Bureau's big in Mercer County, but
if you talk to Beth and Libby, they're getting ready for their annual meeting in August, and that's going to be out at the James McAfee, now owned by the Divines Corn Maze, a wonderful farm outside of Harrodsburg.
One of our certified farm markets.
There you go.
We love the Divines.
How big is it at agriculture in the county? I mean, it's talk about it today and how it really did help grow the town, right?
Well, absolutely. And I wish, I did not think about getting statistics. I should have known that you would want statistics as to what percentage of income and et cetera that are related to agriculture. But I would say, of course, thank goodness we have become somewhat industrialized. And so, yes, there are jobs for the younger people and And then those that stubbornly hold out and are farmers. And all you have to do is get out on US 127 that goes right through our county and watch the loads of hay that are passing you, or corn and things related. It's just there. It is. And I would say, and I may be, maybe a 50% or more of the people are directly related into ag or ag production or supplying of farmers.
Excellent.
Well, to help add to that, what does your family still farm today?
They farm. When I was growing up, it was dairy and tobacco, and we went out of the dairy business, and certainly went out and have gone out of the tobacco business. We didn't know there was anything. Well, we just won't go there. I mean, tobacco is tobacco. I will say this: the family didn't use it. Good grief, after you'd been out there working in, did you want to stick it in your mouth and set it on fire? But anyway, we now, of course, we've done cattle, and then we finally have realized where we are situated. Just across the river, I can look at Woodford County, for instance, from horse farm country, et cetera, that we're better off utilizing our land for the hay, for the alfalfa, et cetera. So we supply the feed that other people need, and that's been a real symbiotic, nice thing.
So talk through, I'm jumping backwards again, but I think we always talk about, we used to be Virginia, and then we become our own state and our Commonwealth.
Yeah.
I've always wondered, I mean, it's kind of that whole Paul Revere moment of like, somebody's on a horse just running and telling you the British are coming.
Yeah.
Who'd let people know? Like, how did they find out? Were they aware that we were going to be a state, or how did that even happen?
Harrod is one of your people involved in that. He was actually elected a representative to have to go back and forth over to Virginia. So to get your laws enacted, et cetera, you did get to send representative men from Kentucky County over to Virginia. And that just, of course, as you say, something could be long ago done, and you don't know about it, and it's just horribly inconvenient. And so in 1792, it finally got through, and we are, and we're, 1787, I think we became Mercer County, Virginia. But prior to that, somebody had to physically go over the mountain and get it. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's
And there is the other thing through all of this. We have gotten so jaded as far as our technology goes, and so on. And so many stories from that day and time, if there had just been cell phone technology. Oh, my goodness. Yes. And so they didn't have it. And so it required the whole trip. And I thought about this. Yes, there was, quote, postal service, but most of the time you tried to find your own person to deliver. Oh, you're going to be going to such and such place in Virginia. Would you take this and maybe see if you can get it to so-and-so?
Yeah.
And boy, are there, we won't get into it today, but there are some deep stories that have to do with just the fact that they didn't get to communicate and missed each other by a breath is all.
Yeah, I think, communication certainly has helped a lot of things, and it's also caused a lot of problems.
This is very true.
So what do you think James Harrod would think today? That was something that I think in your notes you sent to. What do you think he would think about, obviously, his town?
I think he'd embrace it.
Yeah.
I think he would be somewhat amazed, but I think that it would be an eye opener for him because it had to be a dream of his, and to walk in and see that dream in full fruition would have to blow him away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also see him as a man that would fit in just fine today. I think he would adapt and just be Joe Blow out on Main Street, Harrodsburg. No, he'd be mayor. Might have already been governor. And you know what we didn't finish is what he wore. What they shopped for down at Broad.
Yeah, what was on the ledger in Louisville.
Yeah. I think it's down at the Filson Club. I think they've got copies of it.
Okay.
But this is why I would always laugh and say, the women in the fort hated his wife, because when he was out on a long hunt, he would drop in, and it was noted that he brought her back silks, laces, and once a parasol. But she's on the books equally buying him silk vests, silver buttons to put on his shirts, etc. So they were, again, that was a power couple and a happening couple.
Sharp dress.
And of course, again, we don't think about that as even have been available at that time. But yeah, they looked good. Yeah.
Nice.
So my question to you, and I'm sure we're getting close to rounding this out. I'm having a blast though. I'm going to go back to you.
Okay.
Why the historian side? At what point, or has it just naturally happened your whole life? Or did at one point, I mean, you say you're into genealogy and you say you enjoy reading these things. At one point, did you just say, yeah, this is what I'm doing at retirement. I'm going to dive. Or has it just slowly been building the whole time?
I couldn't wait till retirement to get into this because this was, since it wasn't my vocation, it was my avocation. I would say, first of all, it is a mindset, and I don't know if it's just in Mercer County in Kentucky, but when people meet and visit, next thing you know, they're talking about the old days, and people do. And I was one of those little nerdy kids that hung around the edges to listen to it, So I knew that I think I referenced this, I knew that there was a tale that had to do with that creek at the back of our farm that supposedly, and I think it was Shawnee, were chasing some settlers, and they beached their canoes and headed to Harrodsburg, but they were carrying gold. Why were they carrying gold? And buried it somewhere along the route and never came back to get it. And every child for generations has turned over every stone on that creek looking, and it's not there, by the way.
I thought you were about to tell us you were the one that found it. I was about to be like, we have her. You heard it here first.
Found in the middle of a rock bar, which is just miscellaneous gravel. The most beautiful, perfect arrowhead, and that was gold to me.
That's
but
awesome.
At any rate, why did I keep up with that? Probably as much my little grandmother Moore loved history. And so when I was down there, and okay, I'm just going to describe the perfect moment. Her front porch, it's raining, and water is coming down on all sides, and she has a front porch swing that is just perfect, has a perfect click while you're walking back and forth. And Granny would start telling some of her stories of the ancestor when there were still panthers in the woods, and the horse got skittish, and the next thing you know, it bolts, and the ancestor is calling it everything, and he gets home, lights the lantern to rub it down because it's in a lather, and there are claw marks down the horse's haunches. If the horse hadn't bolted forward, a panther would have gotten great-grandfather Bishop, and then she would say, and you wouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just full or filled with stories like that. There was no other chance. I just had to keep them coming.
I love it.
Yeah.
We appreciate your time. I mean, we can talk about this for days and days. I think there's so much to that town, and you probably could have that happen in every little town in Kentucky, every big town in Kentucky, with plenty of great history of our state. And so we appreciate it.
And of course, I'm going to do my PR here. It's well worth the visit. Mm-hmm. If you don't do anything else, go to Fort Harrod because, I mean, it is just chock full. But as you said, the whole town from Old Beaumont Inn that is still a restaurant to just the ambiance of the old houses that are there. And I think what always strikes me is, okay, you have a big palatial columned house, and turns out if you check out the core of it, it's a log cabin. And so the town just seeps its history. I'll put it that way.
Excellent. Yeah.
Well, I think that's just the perfect part. We will put it in the show notes for any of you that are not familiar with this little gem in the center of Kentucky. Mm-hmm. We'll put it in the show notes, maybe the visitor's guide or that website, so you can kind of visit Harrodsburg and see. You may have to just look at the transcript and figure out all the cool places that have been talked about today. So with that, we can't thank you for your time enough. Happy birthday, America. And
amen.
Congrats to Harrodsburg for being our oldest town in Kentucky. So we will wrap this thing up. Thank you, listeners, for having another good episode with us. Make sure to listen to some of those older ones. And we'll see you next time on Let's Get Rural.